Catherine Morland, in her infancy, would have thought her born to be a heroine. Her situation in life, the character of her father and mother, her own person and disposition, were all equally against her. Catherine loved all boys' plays and greatly preferred cricket to dolls. She never could learn or understand anything without first being taught, and sometimes not even then, for she was often inattentive and occasionally stupid. She had neither a bad heart nor a bad temper, was seldom stubborn, with few interruptions of tyranny. She was, moreover, noisy and wild, hated confinement and cleanliness, and loved nothing so well in the world as rolling down the green slope at the back of the house. At 17, Catherine was in training for a heroine. She read all such works as heroines must read, novels filled with horror and terror, which, as we know, can best prepare a young lady for the demands sure to befall her in society.
And thus she stood. The light glimmered under an opposite door of the gallery, and from its situation she knew that it was the door of that mysterious chamber where she had made a discovery so shocking that she never remembered it without the utmost horror. But her feelings were now in such a state of weakness that she almost expected to see the door open and some horrible object appear in it.
At present, Catherine did not know her own poverty, for she had no lover to swoon upon. She had reached the age of 17 without having seen one amiable young gentleman who could call forth her sensibility, and without having inspired one real passion. There was not one family among their acquaintance who had reared and supported a boy found accidentally at their doorstep. Not one young man whose mysterious origin promised a dark and dangerous romance. But when a young lady is to be a heroine, something must and will happen to throw a hero in her way. Enter Catherine's mother, Mrs. Morland.
What is remarkable about me is my good and strong constitution. I had 3 sons before Catherine was born, and instead of dying and bringing the latter into the world as anybody might expect, I still lived to have 6 children more, to see them growing up around me and to enjoy excellent health myself.
And Mrs. Allen, the Morlands' wealthy neighbor, a good-natured woman who had neither beauty, genius, accomplishment, nor manner. Dress was her passion.
I'm very fond of Catherine Morland, and in one respect I am admirably fitted to introduce a young lady into public, since I am and have always been eager to go everywhere and to see everything. Furthermore, I am aware that if adventures will not befall a young lady in her own village, she must seek them elsewhere. Catherine, you enjoy reading novels of horror?
Yes, they are my favorites. All story and no tedious reflection.
Catherine's appearances are mending, are they not, Mrs. Allen? She grows quite a good-looking girl. She is almost pretty today.
Indeed. Catherine. My dear Catherine, how would you fancy a trip to accompany me to Bath for 6 weeks? Its society will introduce you to many fashionable men and women, the likes of which have never inhabited here at Fullerton.
Bath? Oh, yes! Mrs. Allen, yes, thank you!
Oh, you tumble my skirt, dear. Come along.
Write me as soon as you arrive here.
Goodbye!
Goodbye!
Goodbye! darling? The lower rooms? The theater?
Neither, my dear. You must attend your first ball. Now, remember the three no's of public dancing and bath. If you say no to one partner, you must say no to all. Puff up your sleeves, dear. And two, no more than two dances with the same partner. Anything more is scandalous. And, oh, look, there's Mrs. Thorpe. Silk and not Indian muslin. How odd. And three, no new partners unless you are introduced by me or the master of ceremonies. Oh dear, do take that pin out of my sleeve. Oh! Oh, I wish you could dance. Such a fine dress. I wish you could get a part.
Oh, as do I, but I have no acquaintance here.
There's Mrs. Thorpe. I shall return presently, my dear. Yoo-hoo! Mrs. Thorpe!
No sooner had Mrs. Allen exited to see her former school friend than our master of ceremonies, c'est moi, approached a certain Mr. Henry Tilney, who requested an invitation to meet our heroine. He wished to dance with her. Catherine felt herself in high luck. This is why I stick to novels. Give it a moment.
Remiss, madam, in the proper attentions of a partner. I have not yet asked you how long you have been in Bath, whether you were ever here before, whether you've been to the theater and that concert, and how you like the place altogether. I have been very negligent. I will begin directly.
You need not give yourself that trouble, sir.
It is no trouble, I assure you, madam. Have you been long in Bath, madam?
About a week, sir.
Really?
But why should you be so surprised?
Well, some emotion must appear to be raised by your reply, and surprise is more easily expressed. Now let us go on. And were you never here before, madam?
Never, sir.
And are you enjoying yourself?
Yes, very much.
Now I must give one smirk, and then we may be rational again. Oh, I see what you think of me. I will make but a poor figure in your journal tomorrow.
My journal?
Yes, I know exactly what you will say. Friday, went to the lower rooms, but was strangely harassed by a queer, half-witted man who would make me dance with him and distressed me by his nonsense.
Indeed, I shall say no such thing.
Shall I tell you what you ought to say?
If you please.
I danced with a very agreeable young man, introduced by Mr. King, had a great deal of conversation with him. Seems a most extraordinary genius. Hope I may know more of him. That, madam, is what I wish you to say.
But perhaps I keep no journal.
Then perhaps you are not standing in this room, and I am not standing by you. These are points in which a doubt is equally possible. Not keep a journal? What are you thinking of so earnestly? Not of your partner, I hope. For by that shake of the head, your meditations are not satisfactory.
I was not thinking of anything.
Ooh, that is artful and deep, to be sure. But I'd rather be told at once that you will not tell me.
Well then, I will not.
Thank you. I hope we shall soon be acquainted, as I am authorized to tease you on this subject whenever we meet. And nothing in the world advances intimacy as much as teasing, Miss Morland.
Isabella! Oh, Catherine! You must meet Miss Thorpe. Her mother and I were schoolmates go.
Miss Morland! Oh, how delightful it is to meet you. You know, I already consider us friends. My brother John and your brother James are very well acquainted. They're at Oxford together.
Yes, Miss Thorne! James visited you last Christmas. Yes. How do you do?
Very well, thank you. Oh, a lovely dance. Your partner seemed very agreeable.
Mr. Tilney, yes, very agreeable indeed.
I hope he does not prove a Montoni.
You have read Udolpho.
Yes, Mrs. Radcliffe is my favorite. I find Udolpho more horrid than the Italian or a Sicilian romance.
Oh, I have not yet read those.
Then we shall meet for tea tomorrow, and you are to accompany me to the bookshop where I am to borrow Mrs. Radcliffe's Romance of the Forest. It is her very latest.
You are too kind, Miss Thorne.
Then perhaps we shall meet your Mr. Tilney on our way.
No, he is not my Mr. Tilney, I assure you.
He may be so in your dreams tonight. Where is he from?
Mr. Tilney is a clergyman and of a very respectable family from Gloucestershire.
Fortunately, Mrs. Allen had taken pains to know who Catherine's partner was. The lady further explained that it would be very improper that a young lady should dream of a gentleman before the gentleman is first known to have dreamt of her. Freeze. How proper Mr. Tilney might be a dreamer or a lover had not yet perhaps entered Mrs. Allen's head. For days afterward, Catherine hoped to run into Henry Tilney, but he was nowhere to be met with. Every search for him was unsuccessful.
He didn't say that he would leave back. Oh.
This sort of mysteriousness, which is always so becoming in a hero, threw a fresh grace in Catherine's imagination around his person and character and increased her anxiety to know more of him. Fortunately, she took solace in her blossoming friendship with Isabella, the progress of which was quick as its beginning had been warm. They called each other by their Christian name, were always arm in arm when they walked, were not to be divided in a dance set, and if a rainy morning... deprived them of other enjoyments, they were more than content to shut themselves up and read novels together. Yes, novels. I will not adopt that ungenerous custom, so common with other novel writers, of not permitting their own heroine to read a novel. Alas! If the heroine of one novel cannot patronize the heroine of another, what is this world? Let us not desert one another. We are an injured body. Our novels have afforded immeasurable pleasure throughout the world, and yet no species of composition has been so much criticized. Reviewers undervalue the labor of the novelist, their genius, wit, and taste. It is not uncommon to hear. And what are you reading, miss? Oh, it's only a novel. Only a novel? Only some work in which the greatest powers of the mind are displayed, in which the most thorough knowledge of human nature, the liveliest effusions of wit and humor are conveyed to the world in the best chosen language. Only a novel? Thank you.
Have you finished reading Mysteries of Udolpho?
I started it ever since I woke, and I am not yet got to the Black Veil.
Oh, I would not tell you what is behind that veil for over the world. Are you not wild to know?
Oh, yes, quite. What can it be? Oh, but do not tell me I would not be told upon any account. I know it must be a skeleton. Oh, I am delighted with this book. I should like to spend my whole life in reading it.
When you are finished with Udolpho, we shall read Mysterious Warnings together. I made a list of 10 or 12 more of the very same kind for you.
Have you indeed? How glad I am. But are they all horrid? The Orphan of the Rhine, Castle of Wolfenbach, Necromancer of the Black Forest. Thank you, dearest Isabella.
Oh, there is nothing I would not do for those who are truly my friends. I've no notion of loving people by halves. It is not in my nature. The men think us incapable of having true friendship, and I'm determined to show them the difference. Now, if anyone were to ever speak slightingly of you, oh, I should fire up in a moment. That is not at all likely with you, for you are just the kind of girl to be a great favorite with the men.
Dear, how can you say so?
After we parted yesterday, I saw a young man looking at you so earnestly. I'm sure he is in love with you. Posture. It is true, upon my honor. But I see how it is. You're indifferent to everybody's admirations, except that of one gentleman who shall be nameless. Nay, I cannot blame you. Your feelings are easily understood.
But do not persuade me to think so very much about Mr. Tilney, for perhaps I may never see him again.
Not see him again? My dearest, you mustn't think of it. Oh, I'm sure you would be quite miserable if you thought so.
No, indeed, I should not. I do not pretend to say that I was not very much pleased with him. But while I have Udolpho to read, I feel as though nobody can make me miserable. Oh, that dreadful black veil, my dearest Isabella, I am sure Laurentina's skeleton is behind it.
Oh, but my dearest Catherine, have you settled on what to wear to the theater tonight? A woman must be very particular about every detail of her dress. The men take notice of that, you know.
They never say so if they do.
Oh, heavens. I make it a rule never to mind what they say. They're the most conceited creatures and think themselves of so much importance.
Are they? Oh, I never observed that. What sort of play is it tonight? A comedy?
Oh, no. It's a ghastly pantomime. Murder. Locked doors, hidden rooms.
How delightful.
It is generally accepted in society that an evening spent at the theater is as much an opportunity for making acquaintances, yes, thank you, as a dance or a visit to the pump room. A clever young lady should value a seat which allows as many eyes to be upon her as possible over one which provides a view of the stage. But Catherine Morland, who was totally ignorant to the finer points of theater going, paid entirely too much attention to the play.
Catherine, your brother and my brother John, James.
driving it from Tetbury, Miss Morland.
I do not know the distance.
It is 3 miles.
3 and 20? It is 5 and 20 if it is an inch. I defy any man in England to make my horse go less than 10 miles an hour in harness, and that makes it exactly 25. This brother of yours will persuade me out of my senses, Miss Morland. Are you fond of an open carriage?
Yes, very. I've hardly ever an opportunity in one, but I am particularly fond of it.
I am glad of it. I shall drive you to Bristol soon.
Thank you.
Isabel, shall we go to Bristol?
Oh, that sounds delightful. Catherine, I'm quite envious of you, for I'm afraid, brother, you will not have room for a third.
A third? With me? No, I did not come to Bath to drive my sister about. That'd be a good joke. No, Morland must take care of you. Shall we, Morland?
Indeed.
I must have forgotten my fan.
Oh, no, let me. That?
The play puts me in mind of Udolpho. Have you read it, Mr. Thorpe?
Rudolpho? Oh, Lord, no, not I. I never read novels. They're so full of nonsense and stuff. No, they're the stupidest things in creation.
I think you must like Udolpho if you were to read it. It is so very interesting.
Not I, no. If I read any, it shall be Mrs. Radcliffe's. Her novels are amusing, with some fun and nature in them.
Udolpho was written by Mrs. Radcliffe.
No. Was it? I remember. So it was. I was thinking of that other stupid book written by that woman they make such a fuss about. Oh, Miss Burney?
I suppose you mean Camilla.
Yes, that is the book. Such unnatural stuff. You know, I guess what sort of stuff it might be before I saw it? As soon as I heard she had married a Frenchman, I was sure I should never be able to get through it.
Miss Thorpe, would you consent to dance with me? Tomorrow night.
I would be delighted.
What an idea! What do you think of it, Miss Morland?
Well, think of what?
To a dance, of course. With me.
Yes. Say yes, Catherine. Would like that very much.
Very good.
Come, John. Mother and sisters await us.
Until tomorrow night, Miss Morland. Shall we go?
Oh, I'm so excited.
Catherine! Well, Catherine, how do you like my friend Thorpe?
Ooh, instead of answering as she probably would have done had there been no friendship and no flattery in the case.
I do not like him at all.
Well, she directly replied.
I like him very much. He seems very agreeable.
He is as good-natured a fellow as ever lived. A little of a rattle, but that should recommend him to your sex, I believe. And how do you like Isabella?
Very, very much indeed. I am particularly fond of her.
I am very glad to hear you say so. She is just the kind of young woman I could wish to see you attached to. She has so much good sense and is so thoroughly unaffected and amiable.
I love her exceedingly, and am delighted to find that you like her too. Oh, I never was so happy before. And now you are come, it will be more delightful than ever. How good it is of you to come so far on purpose to see me.
Indeed, Catherine, I love you dearly.
Catherine was then left to the luxury of a raised, restless, and frightened imagination over the pages of Udolpho, lost from all worldly concern of dresses, balls, and rattling young men.
shall return immediately, Miss Morland. I must confer with Mr. Elliot about a fine mare he has for sale. If I'm lucky, she's mine for 50 guineas, and I won't have to haggle. Mr. Elliot! How are you?
Will you dance, Miss Thorpe?
I assure you I could not without your dear sister for all the world. For if I did, we should certainly be separated the whole evening.
Thank you, Isabella. Your brother has promised me the first dance, but he is presently engaged in business.
Why do we delay?
I'm afraid I must leave you. Your brother is amazingly impatient to begin. But I know you will not mind my going away, and I dare say John will be back in a moment, and then you may easily find me out. Oh, goodbye, my love.
Miss Morland!
Mr. Tilney! I am very happy to see you, sir. I was afraid you had left back.
Well, I thank you for the concern. Please you to meet my sister, Eleanor Tilney.
Oh, it is a pleasure to meet you.
The pleasure is mine, Miss Morland.
May I have the pleasure of this dance, Miss Morland?
Oh, yes. I mean, I did not know that I should see you. I have accepted another partner for the next dance.
Oh, I see. Perhaps another time.
Yes, please, sir, that is my wish. Yes, please.
Excuse me, Miss Morland.
Miss Morland, may I sit by you? We may keep each other company.
Oh, yes, please.
Catherine was interested at once in Miss Tilney's appearance. She seemed capable of being young, attractive, and at a ball without wanting to fix the attention of every man near her.
Are you fond of dancing, Miss Morland?
Oh, yes. I had the privilege of dancing with your brother.
Yes, Henry told me you danced delightfully.
He has spoken of me then.
Yes.
Are you enjoying Bath, Miss Morland?
Oh, yes. Everything is so much grander than in Fullerton. Who is Mr. Tilney's partner?
I believe that is Miss Lewis.
I see. And do you know her well?
No. And neither does Henry.
That Mr. Tilney would ask her to dance a second time, although her wishes, hopes, and dreams all centered in nothing less. Catherine was now chiefly anxious to avoid the sight of Mr. John Thorpe, lest he should engage her.
Miss Morland!
Unfreeze. Every young lady may feel for my heroine in this critical moment. For every young lady has at some time or other known the same agitation. All have been, or at least all have believed themselves to be, in danger from the pursuit of someone whom they wish to avoid. And all have been anxious for the attention of someone whom they wished to please.
Mr. Thorpe.
Eventually, John Thorpe disappeared into the card room with Mr. Elliot.
Mr. Elliot.
And from the whole, Catherine deduced this useful lesson. That to go previously engaged to a ball increased neither dampened for the rest of the evening, and the rain the next morning did nothing to brighten it.
But I quite forgot about it. How did your new shoes suit the dance last night?
Oh, it is from the Tilneys. They wish me to join them on a country walk today at 1. I should be delighted. Oh, and it looks as if the clouds will go away and the sun keep out.
I shall tell the footman to hurry your response.
The Tilneys be here already. It is not yet 1. Oh, I declare it is Mr. Thorpe, my brother and Isabella. Are they coming for me, perhaps? But I cannot go. I cannot go indeed, for the Tilneys may still call.
Oh, dear, my wig! I cannot be seen like this. No hair!
Make haste, make haste! Put on your hat this moment. There's no time to be lost. We are going to Bristol.
To Bristol? But is that not a great way off?
Well, not for my horses.
But however, I cannot go with you today because I am engaged. I expect some friends very soon.
Oh, my dearest, is this not delightful? We are to have the most heavenly drive. You are to thank your brother and me for the scheme, and we would have been off 2 hours ago had it not been for this devastating rain. But it has stopped. Oh, I am in such ecstasies at the thought of a little country air and quiet. We are to drive directly into the country and dine there, and as soon as dinner's over, go on to Blaise Castle.
I doubt our being able to do so
You
much.
croaking fellow, we shall be able to do 10 times more. Blaise Castle and anything else we can hear of. But here your sister says she will not go.
What?
Blaise Castle, what is that?
One of the finest old places in England, worth going 50 miles at any time to see.
But is it a castle? Really, an old castle?
Oldest in the kingdom.
But is it like what one reads about?
Exactly, the very same.
But now really, are there towers and long galleries?
Dozens.
Then I should like to see it. But I cannot. I cannot go.
Not go? What do you mean?
Well, I cannot go because I expect Miss Tilney and her brother to take me on a country walk. They promised to come at 1, and I have just sent my reply. They will be expecting me. And the clouds are going away. I dare say they shall be here soon.
Not they, for as we turned onto Broad Street, I saw them. Does he not drive a phaeton with bright chestnuts?
I do not know indeed.
Yes, I know he does. I saw him. You mean the man I saw you talking with last night?
Yes,
Well, I saw him just now driving a smart-looking girl.
Miss Tilney. Oh, very disappointing. But I suppose they did not receive my reply. Shall I go to Blaise Castle, Mrs. Allen?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
My dear, well, perhaps you go.
Catherine's feelings were in a very unsettled state, divided between regret for the loss of one great pleasure and the hope of soon enjoying another. She could not think the Tilneys had acted quite well by her in so readily giving up their engagement without sending her any message. On the other hand, the delight of exploring Blaise Castle and Edifice like Udolpho might console her for almost anything.
Mrs. Allen seems a pleasant enough lady. Does she enjoy taking the waters?
Yes. She says they lift her spirits, and she insists on drinking the waters from the pump room twice daily. I cannot abide the taste myself.
I've heard the waters are especially beneficial to elderly women. She is quite elderly, is she not?
I cannot answer for her age, but her spirit is quite youthful.
And no children at all?
No, not any.
The famous thing for her next heirs, huh? Well, she is your godmother, is she not?
My godmother, no.
But you're always very much with her.
Yes, very much.
Aye. That is what I meant.
Oh, stop. Mr. Thorpe, stop. It is Miss Tilney. Oh, it is indeed. Stop. I will get out this moment and go to them. How could you... Ah! Oh! Oh! Jane, how could you deceive
so much alike in my life. Even you would have thought it Mr. Tilney.
Catherine was no longer complacent. She listened reluctantly, and her replies were short. This unpleasantness went on unendurably for the passage of an hour, when finally she heard her brother's shouts.
Thor! Thor, we had better go back, Thor! It is too late to go on today. Your sister thinks so as well as I. We'd much better put it off till another day and turn around.
It is all one to me. If your brother had not rented such a damned beast, we would have made it.
And so, the outing to Blaze Castle came to an abrupt and unfriendly end. And most unfortunately for those riding in an open carriage, it began to rain.
Shortly after you left, they accompanied me to the pump room for my waters, and we had a great deal of talk together.
Did you indeed?
Yes, we walked along the crescent for a half hour. Oh, Miss Tilney was in a very pretty spotted muslin. They seemed very agreeable people. Oh.
Catherine had heard enough to know that she was most unfortunate in having missed such a meeting with Eleanor and Henry. Instead, she had spent the time most unpleasantly with John Thorpe, who was most disagreeable. And now, I may dismiss my heroine to the sleepless couch, which is the true heroine's portion, to a pillow strewed with thorns and wet with tears. And lucky may she think herself if she get another good night's rest in the course of the next 3 months. Dejected and humbled, Catherine had even some thoughts of not joining the others at the theater that evening, but it must be confessed that they were not of long continuance, for she soon recollected that it was a play she wanted very much to see, full of locked doors and mysterious chambers, all concealing dreadfully horrible secrets. She was especially enrapt at the final scene of the pantomime.
So rude for riding with Mr. Thorpe after I agreed to take a walk with him and Miss Tilney.
Don't fret, my dear. I shall fetch you some tea.
Oh, I have been wild to speak with you and make my apologies, sir. You must have thought me so rude, but indeed, it was not my own fault.
Freeze! The following exchange saw Catherine's fears and anxieties all put firmly to rest by Mr. Tilton. Explanations and apologies were made and accepted most graciously, and the two managed to put all to rights between them without a single misunderstanding that might have thrown their entire acquaintance into question. With her worst fears calm, Catherine arrived at her most urgent question. Unfreeze.
Do you think we might still be able to take our walk? I am most eager to see Bath from the countryside.
Well, let us go the day after tomorrow, unless you are engaged.
I should be delighted. And I am not engaged at all.
And did you enjoy the play, Miss Morland?
Very much. Was it not perfectly horrid?
Perfectly.
Who is that man speaking with Mr. Thorpe? He is looking this way.
That gentleman now knows your name, and I suppose you have a right to know his. That is General Tilney, my father.
Your father? And how did he come to know Mr. Thorpe?
I did not know that he did. John! My father has a very large acquaintance.
Your brother is eager to be off, Miss Morland. Did you see that I was speaking with General Tilney? Oh, he's a very fine old fellow, as rich as they come.
But how came you to know him?
Know him? There are few people about town that I do not know. But what do you think we have been talking of? You! Yes, and the General thinks you are the finest girl in Bath.
Oh, nonsense. How can you say so?
And what do you think I said? Well done, General, said I. I am quite of your mind.
Freeze! Here Catherine, who was much less gratified by his admiration than by General Tilney's, was not sorry to be called away. Unfreeze.
Catherine! Coming!
That General Tilney should admire her was very delightful. The finest girl in Bath. Catherine was elated and felt encouraged to strengthen her acquaintance with Eleanor and with Henry. It did not occur to her to question the motives of such attentions from the General, nor John Thorpe's particular conveyance of it.
Yes, Miss Morland. Henry has apprised me that we shall meet tomorrow at 1 to walk Beechen Cliff. I look forward to it.
I should be delighted to be guided by you and Mr. Tilney. Farewell until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.
My dearest Catherine!
Oh, it is decided. We shall travel to Blaise Castle tomorrow.
Oh, my dear Isabella, I am so sorry, but I cannot go. I have just this moment settled with Miss Tilney to take our promised walk.
But you must and should retract that promise.
We cannot go without you.
It would be nothing to put off a mere walk for one day longer.
You cannot refuse us, dear sister.
Do not urge me. I am engaged to Miss Tilney. I cannot go.
My dearest Catherine, I know yours is a loving heart, and your temper is so sweet that you must be able to be persuaded by those that you love. Is your temper for Miss Tilney and your affections greater than our friendship?
I have given my word. I cannot go.
I cannot help but being jealous, Catherine. I who love you so excessively, to see myself supplanted in your friendship by strangers does cut me to the quick, I own. These Tilneys seem to swallow up everything.
Nay, Catherine. I think you cannot refuse us any longer. The sacrifice is not much, and to oblige such a friend, I shall think you quite unkind if you still refuse.
Might you put off your scheme till Tuesday, which you could easily do, and I could go with you, and everybody might then be satisfied.
No, that would not work. I might have business out of town on Tuesday.
I am sorry, but I cannot do more.
Well, then there's the end of the party. If Catherine does not go, I cannot be the only woman. I would not upon any account in the world do so improper a thing. I see I shall never visit Blaise Castle.
Catherine, you must go.
Perhaps one of Mr. Thorpe's sisters could accompany him.
I did not think you had been so obstinate, Catherine. You were not used to be so hard to persuade. You were once the kindest, best-tempered of my sisters.
I hope I am not less so now, but indeed I cannot go. If I am wrong, I am doing what I believe to be right.
Well, I have settled the matter, and now we may all go tomorrow with a safe conscience. I have spoken to Miss Tilney and made your excuses.
You have not.
I have. I told her that you had sent me, having just recollected a prior engagement of going off with us tomorrow, that you could not have the pleasure of walking with her till Tuesday. She said very well. Tuesday's just as convenient to her. So there's an end of all of our difficulties. A pretty good thought of mine.
This will not do. I cannot submit to this. I must run to Miss Tilney directly and set her right.
No, Catherine, please listen to us.
I do not care. Mr. Thorpe had no business to invent any such message. If I had thought it right to put off, I could have spoken to Miss Tilney myself. This is only doing it in a ruder way, and Mr. Thorpe, you have already led me into one act of rudeness. No, let me go, Mr. Thorpe. Isabella, do not hold me. If I could not be persuaded into doing what I thought wrong, I never will be tricked into it.
She is likely home by now.
Let her go, let her go. You know, she is as obstinate as...
Thorpe never finished the simile, for it hardly could have been a proper one. John, bench off. Go. The next morning was fair, and the Tilneys called for her at the appointed time, and no new difficulty arising, no unexpected summons, no sudden recollections, my heroine was most unnaturally able to fulfill her engagement.
This beautiful vista makes me think of the south of France.
You've been abroad then?
Oh, no. It puts me in mind of a description in the Mysteries of Udolpho. But you never read novels, I dare say.
Any gentleman or lady who has not had pleasure in a good novel must be intolerably stupid. I have read all of Mrs. Radcliffe's work, and when I once began the Mysteries of Udolpho, I could not put it down, and my hair stood on end the whole time.
I really thought young men despised novels amazingly. But do you not think Udolpho the nicest book in the world?
By nicest, I suppose you mean neatest, depending on the binding.
Henry? Shoo! Shoo, shoo, shoo! Come, Catherine. Let us leave him to meditate on correct diction, while we praise Udolpho in whatever terms we wish. What other kinds of reading do you enjoy?
To say the truth, I do not much like any other.
Indeed.
I do enjoy some poetry and plays. I do not dislike travel, but solemn history I cannot be interested in. Can you?
Yes, I am fond of history.
I wish I were, too. It wearies me. All the quarrels of popes and kings, with wars and pestilences in every page, and the men are all so good for nothing, and hardly any women at all. It is very tiresome. Oh, what beautiful hyacinths! I have just learned to love a hyacinth.
And how did you learn?
Well, your sister taught me. Mrs. Allen would take pains year after year to make me like them, but I never could till I saw them while walking with your sister. I am naturally indifferent to flowers.
But now you love a hyacinth. The more, the better. You have a new source of enjoyment, and it is well to have as many holds on happiness as possible. Besides, now that you're learning to love flowers, you have a good reason to be more often out of doors.
But I do not need any such pursuits to get me more out of doors. The pleasure of walking and breathing fresh air is enough for me, and in fine weather I'm out more than half my time. Mamma says I am never within.
Well, in any event, I am pleased that you've learned to love a hyacinth. The mere habit of learning to love is the thing. Has my sister a pleasant mode of instruction, or did she employ the tyrannical method learned from her governesses?
Henry, Miss Morland is not used to your odd ways. Now make her understand you, unless you mean to have her think you intolerably rude to your sister, and a great brute in your opinion of women in general.
Well, what am I to do?
You know what you ought to do. Clear your character handsomely before her. Tell her you think very highly of the understanding of women.
Miss Morland, I think very highly of the understanding of all the women in the world, especially of those with whom, whoever they may be, I am in company.
Henry, Catherine, he would be misunderstood if he ever appeared to say anything unjust of any woman at all, or an unkind word of me.
I will cheerfully admit that the larger and more trifling part of my sex prefers imbecility in women, but there is still a portion of us too reasonable to agree.
Let me interpret. Henry thinks very highly of the understanding of women.
Especially of those with whom I am in company.
Be more serious, Henry.
It is my considered opinion that nature has given women so much. That they never feel it necessary to use more than half.
Henry! Come, Catherine. We shall get nothing more serious from him on this subject. Believe me, his humor is one thing, and his heart is another.
The whole walk was delightful, and though it ended too soon, it was a perfect day. And not once did she think of John Thorpe or curricles. Early the next day, Isabella wrote to Catherine, speaking peace and tenderness in every line, and entreating the immediate presence of her friend in a matter of the utmost importance. Catherine hastened, in the happiest state of confidence and curiosity, to Isabella's lodgings.
Oh, Catherine, compose yourself.
Oh. Well, and so you guessed it the moment you read my letter? Sly creature. Your brother is the most charming of men. I only wish I were more worthy of him. Oh, but what will your excellent father and mother say? Oh, heavens.
Good heaven, Isabella, what do you mean? Can you really be in love with Jane?
In love?
My dearest, we are heart and faith alike engaged.
Oh! I remember the very first day that James came to us last Christmas. Oh, the very first moment I beheld him. My heart was irrecoverably gone. I remember I wore my yellow gown and had my hair done up in braids, and when I first walked into the drawing room and John introduced him, I thought I never saw anybody so handsome before.
Here, Catherine secretly acknowledged the power of love. For though exceedingly fond of her brother, she had never in her life thought him handsome.
But where is James? Should we not all celebrate?
He has set off to Fullerton with all speed to make known his situation and ask consent. I expect his letter every moment. Oh, but Catherine, what if your parents should not agree to the marriage? Oh, I could not bear it.
No parents could be more kind or more desirous of their children's happiness. I have no doubt of their consenting immediately.
James says exactly the same, and yet I dare not expect it. My fortune will be so small, they never can consent to it.
Indeed, Isabella, you are too humble. The difference of fortune can be nothing.
I only wish our situations were reversed. Had I the command of millions, were I mistress of the entire world, your brother would be my only choice.
Freeze. This charming sentiment brought to mind all the heroines of Catherine's favorite novels, and she thought her friend never looked more lovely than in uttering that grand idea. Unfreeze.
I am sure they will consent. I am sure they will be delighted with you.
Isabella! Isabella! Belle! Belle! A letter has come for you, and it is Morland's writing!
Oh, my dear John!
What?
Oh, John! Do not tease me now! It is from James.
Dearest, I have had no difficulty in gaining the consent of my kind parents, and am promised that everything in their power shall be done to forward my happiness.
Oh, there's more.
My father has generously promised us £400 a year, as soon as I have reached the legal age in 2 years. An estate of equal value is assured as my future inheritance. I am deeply grateful for my dear father's patronage, and although the wait is unwelcome, it assures us a security we might not otherwise have. I count the minutes until we are together again, your dearest and loving friend for life.
Good man!
Congratulations, dearest Isabella. Now everything is pleasantly settled.
It is very pleasant indeed. Mr. Morland has behaved vastly handsome indeed.
Then what concerns you, my dearest Isabella?
It is not on my own account I am concerned. But I cannot bear to be the means of injuring poor James, making him wait upon an income hardly enough to provide the common necessaries of life. For myself, it is nothing. I never think of myself.
I am very sure that my father has promised to do as much as he can afford.
And to that, my dearest Catherine, there cannot be a doubt. And you know me well enough to be sure a much smaller income would satisfy me. I hate money. And if our union were to happen now, there would not be a wish unsatisfied. Oh, my dearest Catherine, you have found me out. There's the sting. The long, endless 2 years that are to come before your brother can hold the living.
Yes, my darling Isabella, such a vexation is understandable. And everybody must love you all the better for such an honest affection.
Oh, I must write to Mamma immediately. Goodbye, dear sister.
Well, I shall bid you goodbye, Miss Morland. I'm expecting at Mr. Nugent's by 4. He has the best equipage in the county, and I know he'll buy my chestnuts for a good price and a good profit.
I wish you luck.
A famous good thing, this marrying scheme.
Shall you not be late?
A clever fancy of Morland and Bell's. What do you think of it, Miss Morland? I think it no bad notion.
I am sure I think it a very good one.
Do you? I'm glad you're no enemy to matrimony. Did you ever hear that old song, one wedding will lead to another?
No.
One wedding will lead to another, as sure as a pirate loves rum. Take care then when catching the bridal bouquet, lest you should be pledged to a bum. Sing! Do-do-do-rum, little gadgety, naggety, tragedy rum, and goose to rum, fidgety, fidgety, nidgety, mum. Oh, you will come to Belle's wedding, I hope?
Yes. I am sure I will be with her on the day, if possible.
And then we may try the truth of that same old song. One wedding will lead to another.
But I never sing. I wish you a good day. I dine with Miss Tilney today and must now be going home.
Nay, but there's no such confounded hurry. Who knows when we may see each other again? Miss Morland, I may come and pay my respects at Fullerton before it is long, if not disagreeable.
Pray do. My mother and father will be very glad to see you.
And I hope, Miss Morland, you won't be sorry to see me either?
Oh, dear, not at all. There are very few people I am sorry to see. Company at Fullerton is always cheerful.
You know, that is just my way of thinking, Miss Morland. But I have a notion that you and I think pretty much alike upon most matters.
Oh, perhaps we may. We shall be very glad to see you at Fullerton whenever it is convenient.
and she hurried away to Miss Tilney, leaving John Thorpe to the undivided consciousness of his own happy proposal and her explicit encouragement.
Dear Catherine, then why would you flout me? A man that is cozy and warm. I've everything decent about me. My horses and all of my charm. Sing, do-do-dum-doo. And you sit on the moon.
To come tonight.
Well, I'm glad you did. It is so nice to have friends to talk with in such crowds.
Oh, my dear Catherine, I can refuse you nothing, but do not insist upon my being very agreeable tonight, for my heart, as you know, will be some 40 miles off. And as for dancing, do not mention it, I beg. That is quite out of the question.
Mr. Tilney is here.
And the man with him?
Graduate Tony.
Miss Morland, would Miss Thorpe have any objection to dancing, as my brother would very much like to be introduced to her?
Your brother?
Yes. My brother, Captain Frederick Tilney.
That is very kind, but I am very sure Miss Thorpe does not need to dance. Your brother is very kind. I suppose he saw Isabella and fancied she might wish for a partner. But he is quite mistaken, for she would not dance upon any account in the world.
How very little trouble it can give you to understand the motives of other people's actions.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, with you, it is not. How is such a one likely to be influenced? Do I consider another person's age, feelings, situations, but rather you consider, how should I be influenced? What would be my considerations to act in such a way?
I do not understand you.
Then we are on very unequal terms, for I understand you perfectly well.
Well, me? Yes, I do not speak well enough to be unintelligible.
Bravo! An excellent satire on modern language.
Hey, tell me what you mean.
Do you really desire it? It is certain to bring on a disagreement between us.
No, it shall not.
Well then, I only meant that you're attributing my brother's wish of dancing with Miss Thorpe to good nature alone convinced me of your being superior in good nature yourself to all the rest of the world.
Prince. Catherine blushed and disclaimed. There was something in his words that soothed her confusion, and she drew back, forgetting to speak, and almost forgetting where she was, until she was roused by the music and by Henry's invitation.
Shall we dance, Miss Morland?
Hey, day, Miss Morland. What is the meaning of this? I thought you and I were to dance together.
I wonder you should think so, for you never asked me.
That is a good one. I was just going to ask you, but when I turned around, you were gone. No, this is a cursed shabby trick. I only came for the sake of dancing with you, and here I have been telling all of my acquaintances that I was going to dance with the prettiest girl in the room.
They will never think of me after such a description as that.
If they do not, I will kick them out of the room for being blockheads. And what chap have we here?
This is Mr. Tilney.
Tilney! Oh, do you need a horse? No. A friend of mine, Harry Elliott, has a fine horse for sale, only 40 guineas. I had 50 minds to buy it myself, for it is one of my maxims, always to buy a good horse when I meet with one. You should really talk to me.
Shall we, Miss Morland?
Excuse me, Mr. Thorpe.
Good evening, sir. That gentleman would have put me out of patience had he stayed with you a half-minute longer. He has no business to withdraw the attention of my partner from me. I consider a country dance an emblem of marriage. Complaisance and fidelity are the principal duties of both, and those men who do not wish to dance or marry themselves have no business with the wives or partners of their neighbors.
But they are such very different things.
I should think they cannot be compared together.
Oh, to be sure not. People that marry can never part. People that dance only stand opposite each other in a long room for half an hour.
Well, such is your definition of matrimony and dancing. Have I not reason to fear that if Mr. Thorpe were to return, or if any other man were to address you, there would be nothing to restrain you from conversing with him as long as you chose?
Mr. Thorpe is such a very particular friend of my brother's that if he talks to me, I must talk to him again. But there are hardly 3 young men in the room besides him that I have any acquaintance with.
And that is to be my only security. Alas, alas.
Well, nay, you cannot have a better. For if I do not know anybody, it is impossible for me to talk to them. And besides, I do not want to talk to anybody else.
Freeze!
Well, now you have given me security worth having. I shall proceed with courage.
I said freeze. Unfreeze.
It is Isabella. And she's dancing with your brother. Oh, I cannot think how it could happen. She was so determined not to dance.
Did Isabella never change her mind before?
And after what you told him from me, how could he think of going to ask her? She was so firm.
You bid me be surprised by your friend's conduct, and I am. As for my brother, his conduct is no more than I believed him perfectly equal to.
Agreed.
Excuse me, Miss Morland.
Oh, Miss Tilney. Oh, I have such good news. Mrs. Allen has engaged our lodgings another fortnight. Oh, I am delighted. I have been so vexed at the prospect of our leaving and not being able to continue.
Dear.
What is it?
Catherine, I'm afraid we will be leaving. My father has just determined upon putting back on Saturday.
On Saturday?
Yes. My father can seldom be prevailed on to skip the waters, but I think a fair trial. And though he is quite well, he is in a hurry to get home.
I'm very sorry to hear it.
Perhaps you would be so good. It would make me very happy if...
Good evening, Miss Morland. I hope you are well.
Catherine, this is my father, General Tilney.
Very pleased to meet you, sir.
Likewise. Eleanor, may I congratulate you on being successful in your request to your fair friend?
I have just begun making the request, sir.
Well, proceed by all means. I know how much your heart is in it.
It would...
My daughter, Miss Morland, has been forming a very bold wish. We leave Bath, as perhaps she told you on Saturday. Could you be prevailed on to oblige your friend Eleanor with your company in Gloucestershire? 'Tis true, we can offer you nothing like the gaieties of this lively place. We can tempt you neither with amusement nor splendor, yet no endeavors shall go wanting on our side to make Northanger Abbey not wholly disagreeable.
Northanger Abbey? I should be delighted. I will write home directly, and if my parents do not object, as I dare say they will not.
How excellent.
Fine way to end such a fine evening. Eh, Eleanor? Miss Morland?
Catherine felt herself favored beyond every other human creature. For weeks, she had longed to see either the ramparts and keep of a castle or the cloisters of an abbey. It had been for many weeks a darling wish. And now, this was to happen. Northanger turned up an abbey, and she was to be its inhabitant. Its long, damp passages, its narrow cells, its ruined chamber were to be within her daily reach. And She could not subdue the hope of some traditional legends, some awful memorials of an injured nun and ill-fated wife.
And so you're going to Northanger? Oh, I'm amazingly glad of it. It is one of the finest old places in England, I understand. I shall depend upon a most particular description of it.
You shall certainly have the best in my power to give.
Who are you looking for?
Are your sisters coming?
Oh, I'm not looking for anybody. I'm amazingly absent. I believe I'm the most absent creature in the world. Frederick says that is always the case with minds of a certain stamp.
But I thought, Isabella, you had something in particular to tell me.
And so I have. Well, here's a proof of what I was saying. My poor head, I quite forgot it. Well, the thing is this. I have just had a letter from my brother John. You can guess the contents.
No, indeed, I cannot.
My dearest love, do not be so abominably affected. For what could he write about but you? You know he is head over ears in love with you.
With me, dear Isabella?
Nay, my sweetest Catherine, this is being quite absurd. Modesty and all that is very well in its way, but really his affections were such that a child must have noticed. And it was but half an hour before he left Bath that you gave him the most positive encouragement. He says so right here in his letter. Says that he as good as gave you an offer, and that you received his advances in the kindest way. And now he wants me to urge his suit and say all manner of pretty things to you. So really it is in vain to affect such ignorance.
I do declare upon my honor I never was sensible of his intentions for a moment. And as to making me an offer, or anything like it, there must be some unaccountable mistake. I could not have misunderstood a thing of that kind, you know. You know very well that if I could think of one man more than another, he is not the person. My dear friend, you must not be angry with me.
Dearest Catherine, the case seems to be that you are determined against poor John. Is it not so?
I can certainly not return his affections, and I certainly never meant to encourage them. Pray, undeceive him as soon as you can, and tell him I beg his pardon.
Well, if that is the case, I shall not tease you any further. I do confess, the moment I read that letter, I thought it a very foolish business. For what were you to live upon, supposing you came together? After all, romancers may say, there is no doing without money.
You do acquit me, then, of anything wrong.
My dearest Catherine, I do not think there is anything that would justify me in wishing you to sacrifice all of your happiness merely to oblige my brother, because he is my brother. When really, after all, he might be just as happy without you. Why should a brother's happiness be dearer to me than a friend's? But above all else, my sweet Catherine, do not be in a hurry. Take my word for it that if you are in too great a hurry, you will certainly live to repent it. Frederick says that there is nothing people are so often deceived in than the state of their own affections. And I believe he is very right.
Catherine, there you are. Shall we meet you in the tea room, dear?
Coming, Mrs. Allen. Farewell, dear Isabella. I shall write you every day from Northanger.
I shall embrace every word.
that laziest, most inconsiderate of idlers, go rouse him. Ah, how honored we are with your presence, sir. One might forgive your tardiness if a man of character were to ultimately appear. You have kept Miss Morland, our guest, waiting, and in great discomfort. I hope you are pleased. Are we ready? No, Eleanor, you must ride with me. You ought to ride in the curricle with Henry, Miss Morland. Enjoy the open air and the views. Off we go.
In addition to every other delight, Catherine would now be riding in a curricle with Henry Tilney. Not to mention, she would now be the visitor of Eleanor Tilney, and was most congratulated by her brother, for in the frequent absence of their father, Eleanor was sometimes without any companion at all.
But how can that be? Are not you with her?
Northanger is not more than half my home. I have an establishment at my own house in Winstead, which is nearly 20 miles from my father's. Some of my time is necessarily spent there. I am always sorry to leave Eleanor.
Yes. But besides your affections for your dear sister, you must be so fond of the Abbey. After being used to such a home as the Abbey, an ordinary parsonage house must be very disagreeable.
You have formed a very favorable idea of the Abbey.
Oh, to be sure I have. But is not it a fine old place, just like what one reads about?
And are you prepared to encounter all of the horrors that a building such as what one reads about may produce? Have you a stout heart, nerves fit for sliding panels and tapestry?
Oh, yes. I do not think I should be so easily frightened because there will be so many people in the house. And besides, it has not been uninhabited or left deserted for years.
No, certainly. But then you must be aware that when a young lady is introduced to a dwelling of this kind, she is always lodged apart from the rest of the family. And while they snugly repair to their own end, she is conducted up a different staircase by the ancient housekeeper, enlarged in some apartment never used since some cousin or kin died in it about 20 years before, lit only with the feeble rays of a single lamp. Will not your heart sink within you?
Oh, well, that cannot happen to me, I am sure.
Oh. How fearfully will you examine the furniture of your apartment? And what will you discern? Perhaps the ponderous remains of a chest, which no efforts can open. You listen to the sound of receding footsteps as long as the last echo will reach you. And when, with fainting spirits, you attempt to fasten your door, you discover that it has no lock.
Oh, Mr. Tell me, how frightful. It is just like a book. But it cannot really happen to me.
On the second night, you will probably encounter a very violent storm. Peals of thunder so loud as to shake the edifice to its foundation. And frightful gusts of wind will accompany it. You will instantly arise and discover a door under the tapestry secured only by mossy bars and a padlock. You will, after a few efforts, succeed in opening, and with your lamp in your hand, you will pass through into a small vaulted room.
Oh, I should be too much frightened to do any such thing.
What? Could you shrink from so simple an adventure? You will proceed, and there you will find some instruments of torture, a few drops of blood, and many sheets of paper, the manuscript of a woman who once lived in the dark and lofty halls. You hasten with the precious treasure back into your own chamber, but scarcely have you been able to decipher when suddenly your lamp expires in its socket and leaves you in total darkness.
Oh, no, do not say so. Well, go on.
You will have to continue with your own fanciful creations, for once we round this corner, you will see it. Look, over there.
Northanger Abbey!
give you, dear audience, some sense of Miss Morland's situation. I have, through the course of a stay in Bath and exposure to a variety of its social events, from dances, proposals, and misunderstandings, and the formation of several attachments to a variety of characters, armed Miss Morland, to the best of my ability, with all the tools a young lady needs to be a heroine. Catherine Morland is now poised to encounter whatever the mysterious silhouette of Northanger Abbey may hold. And it is my duty to allow her to face it as well as she can, and let us hope that my efforts have been sufficient.
My instructions have not been followed to my satisfaction. Find me who is responsible. Ah, Miss Morland. And someone get Miss Morland's trunks, now. Welcome to the Abbey, Miss Morland.
Oh, thank you.
How are you enjoying Northanger so far? I know this hall is rather small and simple, as it is for our daily use, but I may flatter myself in saying that there are some apartments in the Abbey not unworthy of your notice. The gilding in the library alone costs so late already. Miss Morland, I am sure you are tired from your journey. Let us retire to bed. Eleanor, show Miss Morland to her room.
Father, it is not so very late. Perhaps we could show Miss Morland the Abbey, or...
Nonsense. It is 10 o'clock. I will give Miss Morland a tour of the Abbey in the morning. Now it is time for bed. Good night, Miss Morland.
Be sure to check for secret panels before you retire.
Henry, stop your teasing. Come, Catherine. I will show you to your room. I can assure you it is perfectly comfortable. What room is that? That is the room in which my mother died. I hope you shall be comfortable here.
Oh, I'm sure I shall. It's lovely.
Thank you. I chose the furnishings myself. The hangings and my mother's old chest there in the corner. Your mother's? Yes. My father had it removed from her chamber after she died. She kept her treasures locked in it for many years. I hope you have a restful night, Catherine. Good night, and welcome to Northanger Abbey.
Yes. Good night. To show you about the Abbey.
Yes, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry about the mess. I'll clean these up.
Oh, please leave them. They are papers of the utmost importance.
A washing bill,
A what?
shirts, stockings, cravats, waistcoats.
A washing bill.
Shoestrings, hair powder.
But
mind. I'll clean them up. Shall I tell the General you'll meet him in the drawing room?
Yes, thank you.
How could she have deceived herself so? Heaven forbid that Henry Tilney should ever know her folly. She got away as soon as she could from the room in which her conduct had produced such unpleasant reflections.
Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Morland.
Oh, what a beautiful morning we have.
I hope you were undisturbed by the tempest last night.
I was kept a little awake by the wind, I must admit. But storms and sleeplessness are nothing when they are over.
Yes, but such a storm in such a house.
Henry. Stop. You were teasing. I am sorry, Catherine, that you were kept awake.
Oh, it is nothing. And what a charming morning we have after it.
Charming indeed. Miss Morland, which would you like to see first today, the house or the grounds? Yes, I can tell. The judicious desire to make use of the fair weather, you would like to see the grounds. Let's do that first. Eleanor, bring Miss Morland around to the kitchen gardens. I shall meet you there in 15 minutes. Be prompt. You shall not be disappointed, I think, Miss Morland. We have only half a dozen kitchen gardens here, but I enjoy working in each one of them myself. I do love a garden. The Allens, I'm sure, have a great deal more.
The Allens? Oh, not at all. They have only one kitchen garden, and it is often overgrown.
Is that so? They must enjoy being untroubled by such things. Eleanor, 14 minutes.
I do hope you enjoy your walk, Miss Morland.
You are not to accompany us.
No, I must ride into Winstead today. I have parish duties to attend to. Take good care of our guest, Eleanor.
Come, Catherine. I will take you on a favorite walk of mine.
What a pleasant path.
I am particularly fond of this spot. It was my mother's favorite walk.
Indeed.
I used to walk here so often with her, though I never loved it then, as I have loved it since. I often walk here alone. Papa prefers the park.
But knowing it was her favorite, does that not endear it to him?
My father has singular tastes.
Her death must have been a great affliction.
A great and increasing one. I was only 13 when it happened, and though I felt my loss perhaps as strongly as one so young could feel it, I could not then know what a loss it was. I have no sister, you know, and though Henry is a great deal here, which I am most thankful for, it is impossible for me not to be often solitary.
To be sure, you must miss her very much.
A mother would have been a constant friend. Her influence would have been beyond all other.
Was she a very charming woman? Was she handsome?
She was beautiful. Her portrait is an excellent likeness.
Her picture, I suppose, hangs in your father's room.
No, my father had it removed from the drawing room after she died. It now hangs in my bedchamber. I promised to show it you.
I would be honored. I suppose her room has been repurposed.
No, indeed. It remains exactly as it was upon her death.
Does it? I should very much like to see it as well.
We are to meet Papa, but it would not take long to show you.
Can we see it now, then?
Yes, I suppose we can. It's just here.
Eleanor! What could Miss Morland possibly want to see in that corner of the house? Come, it's time for our walk.
Catherine could no longer hide from herself her feelings of aversion to the general. Yes, aversion. His indifference to Eleanor and Henry's mother made him odious to her. She had often read of such characters. Some called them overdrawn and unnatural, but here was proof positive of the contrary. Catherine's days at Northanger were now filled with her imagination's darkest suspicions. Every corner of the house seemed to evoke some image of the crime which she now pondered at every moment of the day. She wrote to Isabella. It seems likely, my dearest Isabella, that Mrs. Tilney's demise is the result of cruel and violent action. I sometimes start at the boldness of my own surmises, but they are supported by such appearances as has made their dismissal impossible. Henry has told me of his and Eleanor's unhappy childhood here. There are so many secrets. Do answer me when you can, Isabella. I am eager for your opinion.
Good morning, Miss Morland.
Henry! Mr. Tilney, good morning. How was your visit to Winstead?
Very fine, thank you. And how are you enjoying Northanger? Is it revealing its darkest secrets to you?
Henry.
Ah, I came by way of the postman, a letter for you.
Oh, I do hope it is from Isabella. She promised she would write twice a week, but I've not heard from her since I arrived. Oh, 'tis only from Jane.
Dear Catherine, though God knows with little inclination for writing, I think it is my duty to tell you that everything is at an end between Miss Thorpe and me. I left her in Bath yesterday, never to see either again. I shall not enter into particulars. They would only pain you more. You will soon hear enough from another quarter to know wherein lies the blame, and I hope will acquit your brother of everything but the folly of too easily thinking his affections return. Thank God I am undeceived in time, but it is a heavy blow. She has made me miserable forever. My dear Catherine, let me soon hear from you. You're my only friend. Your love I do build upon. I wish your time in Northanger be over before Captain Tilney makes his engagement known. Otherwise, you will be uncomfortably circumstanced. Her duplicity hurts me more than all. Till the very last, if I tried to reason with her, she declared herself as attached to me as ever, and laughed at my fears. We parted at last by mutual consent, happy for me had we never met. I can never expect to know such another woman. My dearest Catherine, beware how you give your heart.
No bad news from Fullerton, I hope.
It is from my brother at Oxford. James is so unhappy. I have one favor to beg. That if your brother should be coming here, you give me notice of it, that I may go away.
Frederick.
Yes. Something has happened that would make it very dreadful for me to be in the same house as Captain Tilney.
I see. I suspect the news involves Miss Thorpe.
You have guessed it, I declare. No wonder I haven't heard from her. Isabella has deserted my brother and is to marry yours.
I'm very sorry for Mr. Morland, but my surprise would be greater at Frederick's marrying her than at any other part in the story.
I cannot believe it. Are they a wealthy family?
No, not very. I do not believe Isabella has any fortune at all. But that will not signify in your family. Your father told me that he only valued money as it allowed him to promote the happiness of his children.
Father would never allow such a marriage. Is it not inconceivable, Henry?
For father, yes. For Miss Thorpe, no. What think you of having such a sister-in-law, Eleanor? Have you not always hoped for one who is open, candid, artless, guileless, with affections strong but simple, forming no pretensions and knowing no disguise?
Such a sister-in-law, Henry, I should delight in.
You think it is all for money? I cannot forget that when she first knew what my father would do for them, she seemed quite disappointed it was not more. I have never been so deceived by anyone's character in my life before.
And I'm very sorry for the news, for your brother's sake and yours. I will write to Frederick to see if I can discover the truth in the matter. Good morning.
Catherine, I'm so sorry for the news. Come, let us find some distraction. The weather is fair. Would you like to take a ride about the country?
You promised I might see your mother's portrait.
The portrait? Yes, of course. Come, it is in my room. One can glimpse her refined character and the intelligence for which she was greatly admired.
And how long ago may it be that your mother died?
She's been dead these 9 years.
And you were with her, I suppose, to the very last.
No, I was unfortunately from home. Her illness was sudden and short, and before I arrived, it was all over.
Her look has some marks of melancholy.
Those may be vestiges of her disease and the suffering it caused. Sweet saint, how patient she was. In her eyes, one can see that look. What do you think? Was she not beautiful?
Yes, very.
She had such excellent taste. Would you like to visit her apartment?
Can we? Yes, I should like that very much.
Nothing that concerns Miss Morland in that room, yes?
Yes, Father.
Come, Miss Morland, we await you in the sitting room.
Our heroine was now firmly convinced that the General's evident desire at preventing any approach to Mrs. Tilney's door seemed to point out that something, or horrors, someone was certainly concealed within.
A letter for you, miss. Oh, thank you. It is from Isabella.
My dearest Catherine, I have received your kind letters with the greatest delight and have 1,000 apologies for not answering them sooner. I really am quite ashamed of my idleness. But in this horrid place, one can find time for nothing. You are dearer to me than anyone can conceive. I'm quite uneasy about your dear brother, not having heard from him since he went off to Oxford. Am fearful of some misunderstanding. But your kind offices will set all right. He is the only man I ever did or could love, and I trust you will convince him of it. I will not say all that I could of the family you are with, because I would not be so ungenerous or set you against those you esteem. But it is very difficult to know whom to trust, and young men never know their minds 2 days together. I rejoice to say the young man I particularly abhor has left back. You will know from this description I must mean Captain Tilney, whom, as you may remember, was amazingly disposed to follow and tease me before you went away, and afterwards he got worse and became quite my shadow. He went off to his regiment 2 days ago, and I trust I shall never be plagued with him again. Such a contrast between him and your brother. Pray send me some news of the latter. He seemed so uncomfortable when he went away with a cold or something that affected his spirits. I would write to him myself, but am afraid he took something in my conduct amiss. Lose no time, my dearest, sweetest Catherine, in writing to him and to me.
Write to James on her behalf. No! James shall never hear Isabella's name mentioned by me again. She must think me an idiot, or she could not have written so. I see what she is about. She is a vain coquette, and I do not believe she either had any regard for James or for me, and I wish I had never known her.
You feel, I suppose, that in losing Isabella you lose half yourself. You feel a void in your heart which nothing else can occupy. You feel that you've lost a friend with whom you can speak with unreserve. You feel all this?
No, I do not. Ought I? To say the truth, though I am hurt and grieved that I cannot still love her, that I am never to see her, perhaps never to hear from her again, I do not feel so very, very much afflicted as one would have thought. Do you believe Captain Tilney never really loved her?
I am persuaded that he never did.
And only made believe to do so for mischief's sake? Well then, I must say that I do not like him at all. Suppose he had made her very much in love with him.
Your question speaks to a concern for Miss Thorpe's feelings. A more petty person would seek revenge. I dare say that Miss Thorpe will suffer irreparably in losing a friend who demonstrates the highest general integrity and possesses a most kind heart.
Thank you.
Catherine was complimented out of further bitterness. Henry had made himself so agreeable to her that she resolved not to answer Isabella's letter and tried to put it from her mind.
Eleanor?
In here, Father!
Will you tell your father the news?
No, Frederick will have enough to contend with without our help.
Henry, I thought you were off to Woodstead.
I am, at this very moment. Good morning to you all.
My son is a fine young man, is not he, Miss Morland?
Very fine.
I'm very glad you think so. Eleanor, I'm off to London for business. It should not take more than a week. Farewell, ladies.
Catherine! Now that Henry is tending to his parish duties at Woodstead, and Father is in London, may we not
and we will find you. Counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 100! All hit, all hit! Dorothy!
You're right this time!
Dorothy!
There'll be no pudding for you tonight.
Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of
Dorothy!
Mr. Tilney, I thought you had departed for Winstead,
They've
sir.
delayed preparing the carriage. I did not expect to find you in my mother's room.
Well, yes, I only wanted to see.
You came here entirely on your own? Why?
What Eleanor told me about the room intrigued me. You know, your mother dying and none of you being at home.
Not so. My mother's death was sudden, but she had suffered for many years with a severe malady, and when she contracted a dangerous fever, every measure was taken to secure her recovery. During the last 5 crucial days, Father Frederick and I were all at home and in constant attendance. Poor Eleanor. She was so afflicted only to arrive after our mother had died.
And your father, was he afflicted?
For a time, greatly so. He loved her as much as it was possible for him to. We do not all have the same ways of showing tenderness. While she lived, she had much to bear due to his temper. But he loved her and was truly afflicted by her death.
I'm very glad to hear it. It would have been very shocking if your father had perhaps been less than fond of her.
Am I understanding your meaning, Miss Morland? You thought, from these few circumstances, perhaps a negligence?
No.
Or
No.
perhaps something even more horrible happened in this room? Miss Morland, if I understand you rightly, you have formed an opinion of my father of such horror that I hardly have words to...
No.
And what have you formed these opinions on? Books?
No.
What have you been imagining? My dearest Miss Morland, consult your own understanding, your own sense of what's possible in your observations of people and what is around you. What other liberties has your imagination allowed?
Our heroine's visions of romance were over. Henry's short speech had opened her eyes to her folly, and she thought that he must hate her forever now, for the liberty her imagination had taken with his father's character. She hated herself more than she could express, and if Henry had shown her anything like affection before, She could not hope for more now. Most grievously was she humbled. Her heart broken, she cried bitter tears until she heard the clock strike 3, and then fell into a fitful sleep.
Are you quite well, Miss Morland? You were rather quiet at dinner.
I am well, thank you.
Perhaps that's Frederick. Maybe he's home on leave?
Oh, I could never encounter him with due civility. Please make my excuses, Eleanor.
I will.
Where's Eleanor? Eleanor!
Coming!
Where is that girl? Yes. Tell her she leaves tomorrow. I've called on the carriage and be here at 7 in the morning to tell her she's leaving the attic. You will move now. Shall I tell her myself? Now!
Yes?
Catherine, I'm so sorry to come to you on such an errand.
Dear friend, what is it?
Don't stay shouting like you always do, Eleanor!
I'm afraid, dear Catherine, that we are to part. My father has an engagement that takes our whole family away on Monday. We're going to Lord Whitworth's for a fortnight. Explanation and apology are equally impossible. I cannot attempt either.
My dear Eleanor, do not be so distressed. I understand these engagements. I can easily leave on Monday, and my mother and father having no notice of it is of very little consequence. The general will send a servant with me half the way to Salisbury, and then I am only 9 miles from home.
Have you called her yet?
Catherine, tomorrow morning is when you must leave, not Monday. And the carriage will be here at 7 o'clock, and no servant will attend you. I am in such pain to deliver this message to you.
Have I offended the general?
How could that be possible? All I know is he is in a terrible temper. I have seldom seen him like this. Something has occurred to vex him, but it cannot be anything you have done.
I'm very sorry if I've offended him. It was the last thing I would willingly have done, but do not be unhappy, Eleanor.
I have been to sea!
But a journey of 70 miles and alone, unattended. You must write to me, Catherine.
Oh, Eleanor, I will write to you. And will you give my dearest remembrances to my dear absent friend?
I shall with all my heart.
Oh, do not worry yourself. Now, good night.
None of your underhandedness. Come here now.
Good night. I shall see you in the morning.
No sooner had Eleanor left than Catherine's tears burst forth in torrents. Turned from the house, and in such a way, without any reason that could justify, without any apology that could atone for the abruptness, the rudeness, nay, the insolence of it. Henry at a distance, not even able to bid him farewell. Who could say when they might meet again? The next morning, Catherine arose, got dressed, darted across the hall, jumped into the chaise, and was driven from the door of Northanger Abbey.
My dear, there is a time for everything, a time for balls and plays, and a time for work. You have had a long run of amusement, but now you must try to make yourself useful. Wherever you are, you should always be contented, but especially at home, because there you must spend the most of your time.
There was a great deal of good sense in what Mrs. Morland said, but there are some situations of the human mind in which good sense has very little power. Mrs. Morland was perfectly unsuspicious of there being any other reason for Catherine's unhappiness. She never thought of her heart. which, for the parent of a young lady of 17, just returned from her first excursion from home, was odd indeed.
Are you feeling unwell, my dear? I hope you are not out of humor because Fullerton is not so grand as Northanger Abbey. That would be turning your trip into an evil indeed. And as for General Tilney's unkindness, he acted dishonorably and unfeelingly, neither as a gentleman or as a parent, and your comfort must not depend upon him. I dare say he must be a very strange man.
I think, Mother, he must be like many of our countrymen. Neither fiend nor angel as in books, but an unequal mixture of good and bad.
A very sensible judgment. It is always good for young people to exert themselves, and you know, my dear Catherine, I do believe that your time away has done you good. You have grown into quite a fine young lady. Your father and I have been talking, and I think the time has come for you to consider marriage. Would that make you happy?
Really?
I shall talk to your father tonight about introducing you to some young clergymen and his acquaintance. Oh, and I have brought this book for you, as I know you are so fond of reading. You may find that the young woman's situation is very much like your own.
Miss Morland?
Sir Tilney!
I come to explain to you about my father.
I understand. You are an obedient son.
Not in all things. I must tell you that his temper, though it can threaten and intimidate me as it often has, it could not deter me from my purpose, which was and is to be bound to you in honor and in love. I have to tell you that he wanted me to win your heart for his own needs, but my heart was yours before he told me of his intents, and it has remained yours, even though he has withdrawn his consent to our engagement. Nothing, no one, no force could alter my love for you. My dearest Miss Morland, will you consent to be my wife?
The question, burning in your breast at this moment, must be, what particular interest did General Tilney have in matching his son, Henry, with Catherine Morland? John Thorpe had first misled the general. The general, perceiving his son one night at the theater to be paying considerable attention to Catherine Morland, inquired of Mr. Thorpe if
he knew the young woman.
John Thorpe, only too happy to be on speaking terms with a man of General Tilney's importance, was not only responsive, he was inventive, and since he was resolved himself upon marrying Catherine Morland, his vanity inflated the wealth of the Morlands, and he presented her as
a woman of immeasurable fortune.
The general then purposed for his son, Henry, to marry Catherine's fortune. When the spurned lover and the inebriated lover coincidentally met the general in London, he revealed that the Morlands were
schemers who sought to better their state through wealthy connections.
Like the Morlands. The general, believing himself deceived, banished Catherine from the abbey and from Henry's life. But Henry defied his father and... Yes! One more thing. Eleanor Baron. Eleanor Tilney's partiality to this gentleman was not of recent origin. His unexpected accession to title and fortune removed his difficulties from their marriage, and so Eleanor and the Baron were married. enjoy on the occasion is most sincere. I can think of no one more deserving or better prepared by habitual suffering to receive and enjoy felicity than Eleanor Tilney. Furthermore, I must tell you that the Baron was the very gentleman whose negligent manservant left behind him that collection of washing bills which my heroine found in her room on her first night at the Abbey. Yes! And so, Catherine and Henry were married. And as this took place, within a 12-month from the first day of their meeting, it will not appear, after all the delays occasioned by the general's cruelty, that they were essentially hurt by it. To receive and enjoy the happiness that only she could at the age of 18 is to do pretty well.